Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome here. This is your host Muawiyah Taka, and we are here to discuss Bitcoin related stuff, especially during this 2024 bull market. And today's topic is to talk about fees, Bitcoin fees, transaction fees. Now, there's some interesting things to be mentioned about Bitcoin transaction fees, and one of them is why we have to pay them in the first place. So, on a technical level, the reason why we have to pay fees, or why there's such a thing as a fee market, whereby I can offer more money to get my transaction into the block, or you can, more than you, um, rather than having a set one-off fee, and that is primarily to stop what's called spam. If Bitcoin is an open, decentralized network, that means anybody on planet Earth can use it. Nobody can stop you from using it. So therefore, there has to be essentially a cost for using the network. Because if there is no cost, then I could literally what's called spam the network. I could flood the network with hundreds and thousands of transactions and clog the network, and then no one can use it. It's a bit like saying, a bit like having a public park that's for everyone to use. So then what I do is I go and invite the whole village to sit in the park. So therefore any traveler, any tourist can't actually use the park anymore because I'm just sat here. I mean, that's essentially what protests do. Protesters, they go to areas and they block and obstruct people from using it because they can do so. It's no cost to them other than their time. So we can just do that. And as it's a digital thing, there isn't really a limit to how much you can just spam the network. Essentially, that's how it works. That's why we actually have something called email spam, because it actually costs nothing to send the email. If it actually costs money to send email, then there wouldn't be as much spam as they are today. Because if I was to send out, for example, 100,000 emails advertising X and it cost me £1 each, we're looking at a lot of money. But because it costs me nothing, I can do it. The worst I have to deal with is being blocked. So therefore, I just find a way around that being blocked and I can do it. That's one of the problems with email. It costs nothing to send. Whereas using a Bitcoin network, we can't have something like that. So we have to have what's called a fee network, a fee market. So if I wanted to, for example, send 100,000 transactions and it costs me 10 pence each, it's going to cost me a fair bit, at least £10,000 to send those transactions. So therefore, there will come a point where I'll run out of money and I can't do it anymore, which we've seen many times, historically speaking, on the Bitcoin network, where people maliciously have tried to spam the network and eventually it stops because they run out of cash. Is what it is. So that's why we have a fee market. And also to do with priority, I don't mind my transaction being confirmed next hour, next day, next week even. I'm not bothered. It's my savings. I'm sending some part of my wages to my wallet for when I make hijrah in a year's time. It doesn't really matter how long it takes. I just send it and leave it, lowest fees possible. Whereas me, I need to spend it now. I'm gonna buy a car. I'm waiting in the dealership. The guy's waiting for the money to be sent, confirmed. I put a high fee. So therefore, we can have a hierarchy. That's the premise of the fee market. But there's an interesting thing that I've noticed a few times. Maybe you've not even noticed, whereby I have these news articles breaking. Someone pays $1 in fees, and you think to yourself, who would spend $1 in fees or some ridiculous amount of Bitcoin in fees? I think something like last year, PayPal accidentally sent like $700,000 or $500,000 in fees, and obviously some miner mined it and got those fees. Why would you do so? Or how can you mistakenly do that? I mean, did they press the button? Like, did they put 5 and then accidentally press a couple more zeros and it became 500,000? No. So it's actually quite straightforward. When you make a transaction in Bitcoin, you obviously choose the coins that you're going to send. So imagine I choose 4 coins. Each coin has 0.25 Bitcoin, i.e. I'm sending 1 Bitcoin. So I chose 4 coins, one Bitcoin going in, and therefore it's going to go to you, 1 Bitcoin going out. So if I'm sending 1 Bitcoin in and 1 Bitcoin is going out to the person, that means that there is 0 fees. Listen carefully. I'm sending 1 Bitcoin because I have 4 coins that add up to 1 Bitcoin, and you're receiving 1 Bitcoin, which means there is nothing there as fees. It's not the case that you add fees to transactions. No, fees come from what you send. So if I want to actually add fees to that transaction, I would have to add a 5th coin whereby fees can be extracted from that. If that makes sense. So the only way so imagine all I have are those 4 coins. I only have 4 coins, which add up to a total of 1 Bitcoin. And I want to send you 1 Bitcoin. That's not possible. I mean, it used to be possible back when Bitcoin was early, because in the early days, because miners didn't mind not getting any fees. But that didn't last long. And now a miner won't add your, I mean, many nodes won't even accept your Bitcoin transaction, but a miner won't even add your transaction to a block because it has 0 fees. They just stay there and nothing will happen. You'll never go into a block. So the way to actually give the miner fees would mean that the recipient has to receive less than 1 Bitcoin. So I would say I'm going to send 1 Bitcoin in, but on the other side, you're going to receive, let's say, 0.991 Bitcoin. So whatever is remaining, i.e. the 0.009 Bitcoin, that's the fees. Now, the way you structure that on a transaction is that you actually don't stipulate the fee. You stipulate what goes in, the inputs, and you stipulate what goes out, the outputs, as in what you're going to receive. And whatever is remaining happens to be the fees. So and this is to save in space, because obviously your transaction takes up space in the blockchain. It's pointless recording that information when you can just leave that blank and have it calculated. So whatever is remaining from what goes in, what goes out, that becomes the fee. So what happens? So how can you accidentally overpay someone? Here it is. You've selected, let's now say I want to send you half a Bitcoin. Remember, I've got 4 coins, and each coin is 0.25. So I'm sending 2 coins, and you have to get that 0.5. But as you can see here, there's no fees. So I need to add more money to get more fees, or reduce the amount of money you receive. So programmatically, the accident will occur is whereby you added 1 extra coin, so now you have 3 coins, because you obviously need to have fees, but you failed to put a change address. You didn't actually, so put it this way, 2 coins went in, and those 2 coins are going to become the 0.5 to the guy you're sending the money to. You've added another coin in, because obviously there needs to be fees extracted, but you didn't say anything else, which means that whole coin would be a fee. So the mistake actually is not stipulating how much of that other coin, that 0.25 coin, is change as it goes back to me. So I need to actually put a new transaction whereby 3 coins go in and 2 go out. 1 goes to you, 0.5, and another coin goes to me, let's say 0.24. Therefore, I get back another coin, which is 0.24, and the 0.01 is the fee. So the way you can have those ridiculous fees is if you accidentally, or you could say, yeah, the accident would be programmatically, you program it not to actually give you change. You program it just as money go in and money go out to you, and you didn't actually program or configure it to give you change. So that's an interesting fun fact about how the fee market happens. And that happened recently again as well. Someone sent a ridiculous amount, and that's exactly what happened. It was done programmatically. I think it's through Thorchain. It was done programmatically. It wasn't done manual. It was done automatically, and it failed to give change to things. So I think what it was is that they chose the exact amount of coins, but because what was going out was exactly what was going in, the program automatically kicked in to add another coin, which led the whole coin to be change. That's happened. Interesting fun fact. Anyway, so that's basic information about the fee market and why there is fees in the first place, and why it's not some altruistic thing whereby you just make it all for free. That's why we have fees. And essentially, when people complain that there's high fees in the network and it's so expensive and Bitcoin doesn't work because it's so expensive, no. That's the system and how the system is supposed to work. It's supposed to get expensive if there's high demand. Otherwise, there'll be spam. Hopefully you find this video beneficial. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.